Meghan Markle is allegedly very worried that Prince William could move to strip her of her Duchess of Sussex title when he becomes...
Prince Harry is officially in trouble, and this time, even the palace isn't pretending otherwise. Just when everyone thought the royal drama had finally calmed down, Buckingham Palace dropped a bomb. The BBC released one tiny line: discussions to review royal titles of non-working members. And that one sentence sent the entire internet into full panic mode. Why? Because everybody knew exactly who that was pointing at.
Global brand is based on being the Duchess of Sussex. It's not about being a former actress, although apparently she's now filming a new TV series or movie or something. So if that's stripped, if she loses her title, and indeed if Prince Harry does as well, they become ordinary.
Suddenly, Harry and Meghan's royal titles weren't just complicated, they were hanging on by a single wobbly thread. And the craziest part, Harry didn't take it well. Within hours, literally hours, he was spotted rushing onto a private jet, leaving California like it was an emergency evacuation. No Netflix camera crew, no Meghan holding his hand, no dramatic slow-motion walk for PR. Just Harry, stressed, annoyed, and flying back to London to face the one thing he's avoided for years, the palace.
It actually opens the door also to when William becomes king, quite reasonably stripping Harry of his title, and perhaps down the track, Charlotte and Louis's children not having titles either, because they're unnecessary.
So, did the UK finally run out of patience? Are the titles actually getting stripped? And most importantly, why did Harry rush back alone? Let's break down the chaos.
King, across the board, he's going to strip everyone that's not a working member of the royal family of their titles, and really that would be just because it's easier to manage a smaller royal family. And then you can slip in no longer HRH for Harry and Meghan and their...
It all started when Buckingham Palace put out a short, very formal note saying there would be a constitutional review of royal privileges and honorary titles. In plain English, that meant someone was open for the business of deciding who gets to keep the royal labels that come with being close to the crown, and who doesn't, or... For most people, a line like that reads like a puzzle. For everyone who has been following the Sussex story, it read like a target. The timing made it worse. The brief, quiet announcement came just after journalists spotted King Charles in talks with senior advisors at Clarence House. Those were not the small ceremonial chats the royals sometimes have. Those were meetings that insiders later said were about reshaping how the monarchy works in the modern world. When the palace uses words like streamlining, in royal talk, it often means trimming, tightening, and sometimes cutting ties that are no longer seen as helpful. So, when that news showed up, plenty of people connected the dots right away. They knew this was heading toward Harry and Meghan.
Remain the Duke and Duchess of Sussex despite giving up their royal duties 5 years ago and then going on to publicly slam the monarchy. However, this recent decision to strip Prince Andrew and Fergie of their royal titles has reportedly sent a chill through Montecito, with the Sussexes fearing that they could be next.
It didn't take long for the story to go loud. Reporters moved in around royal homes and government buildings. Social feeds lit up. Editors who had been patient for years suddenly smelled a headline. In the hours that followed, stories appeared about how senior members of the royal family and politicians had grown tired of the idea that royal titles could be used like brand badges for personal projects. One source close to the palace painted a clear picture. This was not revenge. It was a plan to protect the crown's reputation. But for Harry, it felt like something very personal. Back at Montecito, the news hit like a physical blow. People close to the Sussex said Harry saw the headlines and lost his temper. He left a meeting at his home, grabbed his phone, and called Clarence House. The answer he reportedly got was blunt: come and see the king in person, don't argue from California. That message set the next scene. Within hours, a private jet linked to the couple was tracked across the Atlantic. Harry was on his way back to London. Calm had just been replaced by urgency.
I'd be pretty worried too, because she's still happy to use the Duchess of Sussex title.
Absolutely.
I mean, she uses it on her website, she tries to sell her candles and her...
This did not come from nowhere. The review had been building, quietly, for months. Ever since Harry's memoir, the old wounds had been dragged open in public. Spare and the couple's Netflix series did not sit well with the palace or with some lawmakers. The stories inside those projects read like personal versions of family fights, and the monarchy's defenders saw those stories as harmful. Add to that a string of business moves, public rows with the press, and appearances that some inside the palace felt traded royal privilege for personal profit. To those watching from the inside, it began to look like a pattern, a steady use of royal identity, while rejecting the duty and responsibility that normally come with it. That tension built pressure. When Charles became king, sources say he wanted to take a steady, measured line, give time, allow explanation, let things calm, but the headlines didn't stop. For his advisors and for many MPs, enough was enough. Parliament was not silent. Behind the scenes, lawmakers started to ask hard questions. If someone chooses to step away from royal duties and become a private citizen, what rights should they keep? Should honorary titles be things you can use however you like? Should Parliament have a say, or should the monarch alone decide? Those conversations slowly hardened into the idea of a titles regulation bill, a law that could give elected officials a role in deciding who keeps which privileges. Suddenly, these matters moved from private palace rooms into a public, legal field. That idea made the problem real in a way a set of headlines could not.
Ordinary celebrities, and when I mean ordinary celebrities in Hollywood, they're in the same pool fighting for the same opportunities, less resourced and less well connected than their celebrity chums like Oprah and people like that, Serena Williams and so forth.
When Harry's jet touched down at Heathrow, the scene had an edge that made it feel like a moment of reckoning. He arrived not for a wedding or a ceremony, but for a meeting that would determine his official status. Reporters crowded the terminal. Helicopters circled. The mood was heavy. Harry moved straight to Clarence's house. The meeting that followed was meant to be a family conversation, but insiders said it quickly became a confrontation. Inside, emotions ran high. Harry, who had become used to speaking out to global audiences about how he felt, was suddenly staring across a table at the men who run the institution he was born into. According to people who later spoke about the meeting, Harry pleaded to protect his children's titles and to keep some family ties intact. He reminded the king that he was still a prince by birth. He reminded William that family matters should not be punished in public, but the response was firm and direct. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot reject the job and still trade on the perks. From the palace point of view, allowing a situation where royal identity is used as a marketing tool by people who have stepped back from duty undermines the whole point of the monarchy. When William arrived unexpectedly, the temperature in the room dropped further. He reportedly did not shout or boil over. Instead, he spoke with a cold clarity that cut more than raised voices ever could. The message he delivered was simple. You made a choice. You left. If you wanted to live a private life, then that private life should not rely on royal privileges. For brothers who had shared a childhood and a public life, the words landed like a final cut. Harry's reaction, people said, turned from anger to heartbreak. He pushed for his children's future to be protected. He asked for a compromise. The answer, coming from a king and a future king who were thinking about the crown and its long life beyond any one person, appeared sad.
So it's a real issue for her because, you know, having that royal cachet is what people like and what makes people buy her jam or her edible flowers or whatever it is on their website. So, you know, it will be catastrophic for her.
Back in Montecito, Meghan watched the drama unfold through breaking coverage. She was stunned, sources say, and furious. She immediately reached out to her team lawyers and PR pros were called. Insiders say she felt betrayed, not just by headlines, but by a process that looked like it had been set in motion without private family discussion. She is reported to have called the palace to say the conversation was being weaponized and to insist this should not be how the family treats its own publicly. A statement was prepared to show the couple as being drawn into a political fight. Privately, legal teams started mapping the options.
Title, and I think it's ridiculous that the suggestion that somehow she would sue the future king about this and, you know, this title is mine. It is not hers. It was given to her by an institution that she rejected and criticised heavily. So she's in no place to say, it's mine, I will sue you if you take it.
Then came the legal angle that made it also concrete. Reports suggested the review would not be merely symbolic. Drafts were being drawn that could give Parliament a formal voice in these decisions. That step changes the nature of the matter. If Parliament can decide what counts as royal privilege and who can hold it, then the choice moves from private palace talks into public law. Suddenly, the Sussex children's names felt like they might become part of a national debate. For Harry, that was a chilling thought. For the palace, it was a way to make rules that would prevent future confusion during the days after Harry's meeting. Small but telling things happened. Old video clips and throwaway interviews about curtsies or royal life began circulating online. Critics used them as evidence that the couple had been inconsistent in what they said and what they did. Supporters called that spin a cruel attempt to shape the story. The palace, for its part, did not rush to attack. It issued measured lines about review and process, and then let legal and parliamentary engines take over. That quiet was intentional. In the world of institutions, silence often carries more weight than a hot rebuttal. For Harry, the effect was personal and public. He walked away from Clarence House looking exhausted. People around him said he was shaken, frustrated, and worried about what would happen to his children's future. The man who had moved to the United States to find peace now found himself at the center of a fight that melded family, law, and national identity. For Meghan, who had long said she wanted privacy while also building projects and public platforms, the whole affair had escalated into what she feared most, being used as a political symbol against her and her children.
And William, what William will do, he won't get his hands dirty. He'll just sign the letters patent, which disappears the title. He won't even have to talk to her about it.
What comes next is the hard part. The palace confirmed the review was progressing and that no one was exempt. That sentence made the headlines, titles in peril, to be decided by law and crown. For some, that was a long overdue correction. For others, it was the start of a public unpicking of a family story that involved children and private life. Either way, one clear thing is that the status quo had ended. The talk of trimming and redefining meant the institution was trying to set firm rules about identity and privilege in a world where public people often wear private brands. For now, the palace has started a process. For Harry and Meghan, the moment has become a public reckoning. And for the rest of us, it's a reminder that when private life meets public duty, the lines get blurred and the stakes get very real. The review will move on its own timeline, and the choices made will shape not just titles, but how the royal story is told for years to come.